Out or clicking the link, I guess, however you want to say it. My name is Claire. I'm the vice president of AAWD, and I'm gonna turn it over pretty quickly to Marissa, since it's a 40-minute like Zoom call. So, Marissa, if you want to get started, the floor is yours.
Yeah, of course. Hi, you guys. My name is Marissa Andreou, and I am a second year dental student here at the University of Detroit Mercy School of Dentistry. However, to the International Federation of Bodybuilders, I'm better known as Marissa Mini BC Andrews, IFBB Wellness Pro and two-time Wellness Olympian. While enduring the challenges of being a dental student, in the last 2 years, I have also fought my way to becoming one of the best bodybuilders in the world, ranking 7th in 2022, 9th in 2023, and ranking as the #1 US bodybuilder in 2021 or 2022, and then #2 in 2023 in my category, respectively. Also, during those 2 years, I earned titles such as Miss St. Louis, Miss Texas, and was one of 8 women across the world to be invited to compete at the Arnold Schwarzenegger Sports Festival. So those are the same 2 years that I've been studying here at UDM. And the overlap hasn't always been easy. Well, to be frank, it's really never been easy. I can't remember a single day that doing both at the same time has been easy. But it's been so absolutely worth it. And I've committed my life to these 2 full-time careers these last 2 years and shooting for a level that many fight their entire life to earn, but very few achieve. So I just wanted to say before I get too far into things that if you guys have any questions specifically about how I manage my time, life, day structures, anything like that, I'm happy to stick on after I tell you my little story to answer whatever questions or comments, whatever you guys have. But before we do that, I wanted to discuss strength, perseverance, and dedication. Those things weren't something that I was born with, but they were learned traits and honestly something that saved my life. And before you guys roll your eyes and log off thinking they invited some meathead on here to just check in and see if you were sticking to your New Year's resolutions, I promise you that the physical strength I have is probably the least interesting thing that I will talk about today. But with that being said, I am going to bring you back to my senior year of college when I squatted 225 pounds for the first time. Like so many people, I have fought with depression and anxiety since my young adult years. However, going into my first semester of senior year, I started to lose that battle. When standing up out of bed was a fight in itself, finding the strength to go to class was something I couldn't even fathom. And after 3 years of perfect grades, I failed my first class. I remember being so sad, embarrassed, but most of all, angry. Angry at myself, angry that something I couldn't even point to was beating me down and robbing me of who I thought I was. I honestly can't remember what it was exactly that brought me to the gym for the first time, but it was the time that changed everything. I dragged myself there not knowing a single thing about working out. And I walked up to the squat rack because I knew what a squat rack was. I knew what a squat was. It was safe. We all know what squat is. So I walked up, looked to the person next to me, and copied their weights, 225 pounds. I walked up to the bar, rested it on my shoulders, and took it off the rack. My legs were already shaking as I braced myself, and I started the movement. I moved down and down. And for all of you that like spoilers, that was not the day that I squatted 225 pounds for the first time. I kept moving down until I was flat on my butt. That weight was just too heavy for me to bear, and I was not able to stand back up. I was embarrassed and I grabbed my things and ran home in tears, swearing that I was never going back to the gym ever again. It had beat me. But despite my bruised ego, the week later, I went back. And I walked up to that squat rack with so much anger. But this time, I was smarter. I started small. And I slowly started adding weight until I got to a point, let's throw a number, 100 pounds. And I couldn't stand back up. I fell to the ground and I had failed again. And I had the same reaction. I stormed out, embarrassed, and I swore I was never going to come back. But 1 week later, of course, I was back. And I loaded that same 100 pounds onto the machine. I braced myself and I started moving down. I moved down and down until I was at the very, very bottom of that movement. And I threw everything I had at it, every ounce of anger, embarrassment, resentment, everything I had, I threw into the bottom of that movement, fighting every fiber of muscle in my body, screaming at me to stop. But it moved, and it moved up and up and up until I was upright and the bar was back where it came from. And this pattern went on for weeks, adding more weight than I could manage, failing, and then the next week succeeding. Until one day, without realizing it, I had taken so many small steps that I had loaded that 225 pounds onto the bar and it had moved. I was finally strong enough to overcome it. That same insurmountable weight that I'd crumbled under months before was now something that I could handle with ease. There's no one single definition of strength. I personally believe that the word means something different to everybody, but there is one commonplace with each variation of the word: the failure to not quit when things get hard. Strength isn't always something that you can see, and strength is not measured by the same ruler every single day. If I could go back and tell myself one thing during this point in my life when I felt so weak, I would argue with her and tell her that she was strong. Because at that point, standing up out of the bed was the biggest battle that she could face. So by that definition, she was doing the best she could. I believe that the gym showed me a different version of strength than just muscles and barbells. It planted this idea into my mind that in order to exceed your preconceived definition of your own limitations, you must fail. Not that you might fail, you must fail. You have to push yourself to the very brink of what you think you can handle today for the sake of yourself tomorrow, because you tomorrow will be able to go just that one increment further. Taking one step every day means that in 1 year, you are 365 steps further than you would have been if you had just accepted your position today. And I get it, it's hard. We all go through dark times and it makes us feel weak and vulnerable to experience these pains. But I fundamentally believe to my core that going through dark times doesn't mean you're weak, because you're here, you're alive. You are stronger for having gone through that pain and making it out the other side. Just because you're broken doesn't mean that you're ruined. Mosaics are created from thousands of pieces of shattered glass. It just means that now you have the tools and the opportunity to put yourself back together into something beautiful. They say that the human spirit is the only thing that becomes stronger after it's broken. So by the end of my senior year, I had retaken that course that had knocked me on my butt that first semester, and I passed. I now know that failing is not the end of my story. It was the day that the slate was wiped clean so I could define who I was. One of my favorite poems from an artist, Ian Thomas, goes like this, and I quote, "It doesn't count if you believe in yourself when it's easy to believe in yourself. It doesn't count if you believe the world can be a better place when your future looks bright. It doesn't count if you think you're going to make it when the finish line is right in front of you. It counts when it's hard to believe in yourself, when it looks like the world is going to end and you still have a long way to go. That's when it counts. That's when it matters the most." End quote. When it comes to being a strong person, you don't have to be the biggest or lift crazy amounts of weight to be considered strong. You just have to keep showing up and taking that step forward in that complete darkness when you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's that unwavering trust and faith that you have in yourself that makes you strong. When everything and everyone around you screams at you to give up, you stand back up and say, "My name is Marissa Andreou, and today is the day that I get to define what that means." Thank you guys so much. So if you have any questions, that was my little story time. So if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them. You guys can unmute or just write in the chat, whatever makes you more comfortable.
I have a question.
Yes.
Marissa, who has been your role model throughout your life and everything that you've been doing this far?
My parents. Hands down. They are the hardest working human beings I have ever seen in my entire life. They will work 25 hours a day, 8 days a week, and come home with a smile still on their face. I don't know how they do it. My dad is still creating new companies and being an entrepreneur. My mom is a teacher for children with special needs. is emotionally, physically, mentally drained day after day. But if you met her and spoke to her, you would have no idea how hard their work and demanding their lives are, because they always just have this like glow. It's never a, I don't want to say burden, but it's never a, it's not a pity party ever. They do the work, they do what needs to be done, and they keep moving forward. My dad and I were actually talking about what we thought strength meant. And have you ever seen the movie Cinderella Man? It's a boxing movie. Yeah. So when he's in that final ring and keeps getting knocked down time after time after time again, he keeps getting back up, because when he shuts his eyes, when he gets knocked to the ground, what he sees is his family starving and poor and broke. And that is more painful than the giant man that's beating him up in the ring. And I swear, I don't think it's that dramatic, but it's the kind of that same idea where the idea of failing at what you're trying to do hurts more than what you're actually going through. How do you protect your energy, positivity with so much negativity in the world, especially with social media and trolls? That is a great question. I think in the world, the hardest thing you can learn how to do is learn to say no. Someone told me that behind every yes is a bigger no, and behind every no is a bigger yes. So when you say yes to something, if I were to say, yeah, I would love to go out to drinks tonight, I'm saying no to a full night's sleep. I'm saying no to an early bedtime, to rehabbing my muscles, and to really I'm saying no to things. And every time you say no, you're also saying yes and giving yourself the opportunity. So it's never just a simple yes or no. And learning that once you have that power to say yes to yourself by saying no to something else, it really makes it a lot easier to say those no's and to protect yourself. And also with social media trolls, they don't know you. And frankly, the people on the internet, they don't know you. They go on the internet in the mindset that they're in, and how they interact with other people is a reflection of them. It's if they are angrily commenting on your pictures or on things that you're doing, it means that they're just angry people. It doesn't mean that you did something. It just means that they happened to come across your picture as an outlet for their anger. What are your methods for managing stress and preventing burnout? Oh, it's the book is by Ian Thomas, and it's called I Wrote This For You. I ugly cry every time I read it. The poems, it's literally right there. I ugly cry every time I read it. They're such simple quotes, but they're so gorgeous. Managing stress and preventing burnout. That's a very good question, because I toe that line a lot. This last Olympia was one of those ones where I cried coming off stage, and not because I had placed in the top 10. I cried because I had reached the finish line. I was so exhausted and drained and burnt out that simply getting to that finish line, I felt like I just collapsed. But something that I've learned to do is to treat my mental health just as importantly as if I were doing something like my diet, my meal plan, studying. They are just as essential and just as important, and you need to schedule them into your life. I always joke that I will schedule times to cry during prep, because I know that I'm going to have all this emotion. So I'm like, all right, this is the 30 minutes that I'm going to put on my crying playlist, and I'm going to cry, let it all out, have a cathartic release, and then I'm going to wipe my tears, and I'm going to go do what I need to do. Because we are human beings and we have these emotions, and the worst thing that you can do is stifle them, because they're always there and you're always going to be holding on to them. So unless you give that the grace of being real, then it's just going to be sitting there and festering and growing bigger and bigger until you have to address it in a time where you don't want to. So scheduling in your mental health things like they were as important as studying, eating, training, things like that. How did you adjust balancing school and your lifestyle? A lot of planning, a lot of pre-planning. I remember when Liv and I met, she was like, when do you want to hang out? And this was like August. And I was like, well, I have a free weekend in December. It was just, everything needs to be so planned out and do your future self favors as if they were your best friend. So if you were living with somebody and they had a super long day tomorrow, you would spend the night prepping their breakfast, prepping their lunch, making sure their bag was packed, because that would be a loving thing to do to the person you care about. So do those things for yourself to make your future self's life that much easier. Let me see if I missed any questions. How do you deal with dentistry school burnout on top of life burnout? I also work in the field and experience it a little. It's a great question. I wish I was like omnivalent, that's the word, where you're not omnipotent, that's with stem cells. What is the word? But I wish I was all knowing. I wish I could just be like, I got it all figured out. I know all the answers, but the truth of the matter is it's hard. Bodybuilding and dentistry, dental school in itself is exhausting. And trying to remain active and do things that keep part of you is difficult. So I honestly, like, to avoid burning out, I'm blessed that working out is something that makes me feel like myself and something that I would do normally even if I wasn't competing. Like, I'm not in preparation for a show right now, but I come home from class and I'm like, oh yes, like I get to go to the gym. So try and find that thing that makes you feel like you outside of school, outside of academics, something that makes you feel like you, and make it a priority within your week. Thanks, Cindy. Love you. What was my favorite part of dental school? Sim lab. I love sim lab. I love drilling. I love the hand skills are so much fun. We got to do our first stab lab, which is injections, and actually Miss Olivia right here and I were partners. Everything that's, I do like learning. So like the class is extremely hard, but oral pathology is one of my favorite classes because it's interesting, but also like the hand skills and the doing the dentistry aspect makes me feel like I'm doing scientific arts and crafts. And in case you didn't know, I actually studied fine art and design in undergrad as well. So it just is all of the pieces of myself just kind of all merging together. How do I make time for your coaching? Also love you, Judy. She's one of my coaching clients. I'm not able to do full-time coaching anymore because of that aspect, because of the fact that I don't have enough time. Let me rephrase that. I have the time to give the information, but I don't have the time to give the level of support and emotional connection that I feel like athletes deserve. So when it comes to posing coaching, when it comes to writing the plans out, I have the time for that because I make the time for that. I make them a priority. There's days during the week that are exclusively posing days. So Saturday and Sunday mornings, all day are just posing. And then I have sporadic sessions throughout the week that I can schedule in around my school schedule, but I make them a priority. And I try to fully differentiate between school Marissa, friend Marissa, daughter Marissa, girlfriend Marissa, and bodybuilding Marissa. So all of those different aspects of myself, I have to be 100% in that moment in order to give my 100% mindset and like 100% of my effort. Because if I'm here in school trying to study and my mind is thinking about bodybuilding, I'm only giving 50% if that's the only thing I'm thinking about. And that's not enough to do what I need to do. So every moment that you're doing something and you're like absorbing this identity of one of the facets of your life, you need to be 100% in that. So I make the time for coaching because I love it. And it's something that makes me feel like me. And I will text Colin after almost every posing session, like in all caps, screaming how much I love it. So I make it a priority. I make time for it. And when I'm there with you, I'm 100% there with you, Marissa, the posing coach. I'm not the student. I'm not the bodybuilder. I'm just Marissa, posing coach. So What things besides bodybuilding make you feel like you? I love art. Music. I love playing piano. I am an artist. I have none of my art up on my wall. That's so sad. But painting, I love to paint. I love to dance, and I love to hang out with my cats. They're my little family out in here. What is my favorite art period? Ooh, I studied French modern art in undergrad, and it was really cool learning about the flaneur, which is it's like the male gaze within like a French aspect. And it was really when they started challenging the male gaze. So normally in art, they had the women looking down, looking away so that the viewer could absorb the image as much as possible. And then in that time period, they started making the female gaze more direct into the camera, into the viewer. So it was challenging the idea that women are just there for male consumption, which was very cool. Do you have any plans to continue bodybuilding after school? If so, what are some of your goals, dental and bodybuilding wise? I don't have any plans as of right now to go back into full-time coaching. I adore posing coaching, and I believe that I can make the same, or I can make a difference and be part of people's journeys just as much. And I don't see myself having the time that I believe you deserve. So I don't have any plans to go back into full-time coaching, but I will continue posing coaching for as long as the foreseeable future. And then continue bodybuilding. Yes, I adore competing. I love show weekends. I don't see myself stopping bodybuilding right now. I am just taking a break to recharge and go back and see friends that I promised I'd be friends with 2 years ago when I started dental school, and we're finally going out to grab those drinks that I promised them 2 years ago that I would finally get to do, spend time with my parents, my boyfriend, just exist as a 27-year-old woman for a little bit. And then when the time comes to go back to the stage will always be there. I don't necessarily have a question, but would like to tell you something if that's okay. Absolutely.
Hi, Marissa. So I just wanted to say that over the past year and a half that I've followed you, you have been such an inspiration to me, through your journey with competing and then also with being in dentistry school. Everybody's journey is different, but I'm a full-time mom and a makeup artist, and I'm also an aspiring bodybuilder. So just seeing you navigate your life as busy as it is has been such like a breath of fresh air, to see that it's possible to have so much going on in your life and struggling with depression and anxiety as well, being able to get through that and be on top of the world. And I just wanted to commend you for that.
Mhm. Well, I'm lucky. I only have cats as children that I am tasked with raising, and you have created a whole human life and are raising that. And that is, like my parents knew, it's a 8-day a week, 366-day a year job. So what you do is much, much harder than me. I can't clock in and clock out, or I can clock in and clock out. You can't. So that means the absolute world to me, but I know how hard it is to do what you're doing. And to even take that step further and want to bodybuild and do that for you, it makes you so strong, and it's going to be such an amazing role model for your children or your child to see how strong their mom is. So I love you. And that was so, so sweet. You're going to make me cry, but
Thank you.
older than
I
I
love you too.
am. And to actually talk more about that depression and anxiety aspect of things is, I feel like it was in the last year that I really changed the shift of my Instagram to be more authentic. Competing at the Olympia for the first time is, I felt like an imposter. I watched on Instagram, I watched all of these women effortlessly getting to the stage. They were killing their preps, they were killing every day, they were smiling and dancing in the gym. And I was like, what is wrong with me that I'm breaking down, that I'm crying, that I'm tired, that I don't want to do the cardio, I don't want to eat the diet. Like, what is wrong? Like, something has to be wrong with me because all of these women are doing it effortlessly. And I remember I went up on stage for prejudging, and I got off stage and I started having a panic attack. And I don't know if my sister's on here, but my sister walked over to me and was like, "What is wrong with you? What is going on?" And I told her I wanted to leave, that I had messed up my whole routine. I just didn't want to get last. I messed it up. I wasn't supposed to be there. And she was like, "You are Marissa Andreou." She's like, "You're going to get out there and show them what that means." She's like, "Or that's fine. You can go home. You can quit." She's like, "This is your choice." And I look over, and the person that was standing next to me, also drag heaving. Guess my sister was one of the first to sign on. I'm sure she was. So the person standing next to me, who was also dry heaving and anxious, was our now 3-time Miss Olympia. So the 3 years in a row, the only woman to hold the title as the best female bodybuilder in our category for 3 years running was dry heaving and anxious and having a panic attack. And I started talking to the other athletes backstage, and I realized that all of them were going through these struggles, but they never showed it on the internet. And then I would listen to people who would message me being like, "How are you doing school and bodybuilding so effortlessly? I'm such a failure. It's hard for me. I cry, I do this." And I'm like, I didn't realize that by putting only the front stage self out there and not showing the vulnerable side of things, or talking about when I'm sad, or talking about when I'm anxious, or being like, I cheated on my diet, like, it was actually hurting people. It was making them think that I was this superwoman and this is the standard for what needs to be considered like a human being at this athlete. And if you weren't being that perfect self 100% of the time, then you just weren't cut out for it. And that's when I went home and I started posting a lot more of the authentic journey and my authentic self, and dancing with my crazy cats on the internet, because it was hurting people to pretend to be perfect, and nobody's perfect, and this is not easy. And like I said, I wish I had all the answers. I wish I had everything figured out, but it's hard. So that means a lot. The Arabian studies, my sister falling. Oh,
Hi, Marissa. This is Tracy.
hello, Tracy.
And hi. I've been listening to you, and a lot of what you've talked about has made me think about imposter syndrome. And you just mentioned it. In Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, she talks about like females as executives and maybe doctors or people involved in circles that they feel like they don't belong in. And one of the things that really struck me about you is you walked into a gym, you walked into a male-dominated field, and really put your roots down, and you found yourself, and you felt comfortable, and you grew from that. And one of the things I really admire about you is your growth, your determination, and how you surround yourself with people that are successful. You really surround yourself with people that are going to lift you up. And I totally cannot wait to see what you accomplish in your future, because I think your future is extremely bright.
I love you. Thank you. That was really sweet, and I appreciate you. And it was definitely a journey to make sure that I was being surrounded by people who loved me for me and not loved me for what I could do for them. And I don't mean to cut it short, but it says that we have less than a minute. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for all logging on. It means the absolute world. And you can always message me on Instagram if you have any more questions. But thank you so much, Olivia, and thank you so much to UDM School of Dentistry for having me on. It means so much. So thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you, Marissa. You're amazing. This was
Love you, Marissa.
Great job, kiddo.
Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad.
We're very proud of you, honey.
My parents are famous to everyone that follows me on Instagram. You guys are cooler than I am. I'm aware of that. It's fine.
Oh, that was beautiful.